Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, known world. Um, I'm Bridget, your social media officer, and I'm coming to you from the lovely lands of Lockhart today. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional elders of and custodians of the lands on which we are all gathered and meeting today, and we pay our respects to them, past, present, and emerging. Thank you all for taking the time to join me for this session on our social media policy. We'd like to thank you for all of the feedback that you've provided to us. We're aware that the rollout didn't go as smoothly as we would have hoped, and we've definitely taken that feedback on board for future rollouts. We thank you for taking the time to provide us with questions. I'll be doing my best to answer some of those through the information session, but also please pop some where you have in the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube. And our two fabulous people who are helping me out will try and capture those comments so that we're able to answer your questions. If I'm not able to answer all of the questions today, we are keeping a record so that we will be able to try and provide answers as a further iteration of FAQs. So I might go ahead and start a bit of information on our session. I'm just going to share my screen for you so that we can just pull that together. You know, in case anyone who's wondering, it's a lovely crisp autumn morning here in Lockhart. It's a little bit brisk, but it's a great day. Now, just a reminder to people, if you haven't actually already done so, if you need closed captions, please make sure you turn on those services for you. So, welcome. As I said, today's session is about providing you information about our social media policy. So we're going to cover today in the session, why was the policy updated? What was changed? What hasn't changed? What does it mean for you? A little bit of myth busting, and then some of our Q&As. This session is not going to capture absolutely everything, but we'll try and give you the information initially based on the questions that you've been asking, and then additional information we can provide. So why did we update the policy? Social media is a platform and a technology space that is continually evolving. As a result, we as an organisation need to make sure that we're evolving as well. And that's what this policy is about. We've received a lot of feedback from participants all over the world about how we needed to provide additional information so that they understood how they as SEA people should use social media and how our officers can help manage it effectively. We also received feedback from newer people saying that being clear about how the SCA uses social media helps them understand us as an organisation. And this is a really important thing. So, for example, 62% of participants in the recent study said that organisations that don't use social media, they think they'll get left behind. And we think the SCA is definitely ready to face the future. We'd also received feedback that the office had really moved. We are one of the younger officers in the SCA. And as a result, our office had grown and matured, and we needed to change some of our policy and procedures to make sure we reflected that. So this is the first step in some additional materials to support all our officers across the known world. This is the policy aspect, where previously the policy and the procedures were both combined in the one document. The office is now moving to a more standard format where we will be releasing a handbook in the next month. And the handbook will contain the procedural elements that people had been looking for. Okay, let's get on to the big questions. So what's changed? And as you've said, I've just seen that I talked about that it contains both policy and procedure. It's now purely policy. That's why when you've been asking where are some of the sort of how, those aren't there. Policies traditionally contain what and why. We also want you to be very clear that this policy does not exist in a vacuum. This is simply another part of the overall policies of the SCA about how we're going to use various tools and also how we'd like people to behave. We received a lot of feedback in the last year that you wanted us to be clearer about how people should be behaving online. And we wanted you to understand that if you're in a situation where you can make, or a direct connection can be made to your profile from the SCA, we have certain requirements for how we'd like you to behave. It's also clearer about the expectations for our officers, our board members, and other sort of high-profile participants. Those requirements will change depending on the role, as not everyone has a direct sort of line of engagement agency for the SCA, but it actually gives a bit of clarity. More importantly, what hasn't changed? A lot of people have responded to the policy as something new, and it may very well be the first time that you've read the policy. Policies aren't that sexy to read, and the SCA is full of so many things that it's often able to be watching and listening and doing things without actually understanding there are policy structures behind it. But this policy really is only a minor update in the overall scheme of things. So, things that didn't change from our previous policy. What didn't change is what you can and what you can't publish on official social media channels. It didn't change who gets to speak for the SCA as an organisation, who is the person and people authorised to do that. It didn't change what the SCA defines as bullying, harassment or hate speech. Those policies are already in place and have been in place for some time. It didn't change who can investigate and who can deliver sanctions on behalf of the SCA. That is the Office of the Seneschal, and it remains so. It didn't change what are the responsibilities of people who administer social media channels, and most definitely, it did not impose requirements on people who monitor and moderate unofficial channels. Those are not our business, and we do not try to impose upon them. What does that mean for you as an SCA person and for me as an SCA person? Basically, in terms of my personal social media use, it means very little. The thing that we're asking you is that if a direct connection can be made to the SCA in your personal online activity, don't bully, harass, use hate speech, abuse, or threaten people. We're pretty sure that 99% of everyone that you're interacting with is already not displaying those behaviours. This is because not only is it against our rules, it's also against the rules of 99% of the social media platforms you may be using. That's all we're asking. We're not asking you to stop talking about the SCA. We're not asking you to stop criticising the SCA. We're just asking you to behave in a way that you would as the same way as you would at an event. And this actually means that we reflect and share the SCA that we want the world to see. So I thought I'd start the session with a little bit of myth busting. The big one I've seen most commonly is that the SCA is now planning on actively monitoring your personal social media feeds. My simple answer to that is no, we're not. As I've said in the slide, there are lots of you and only a few of us, and despite the appearances, most social media people do need to sleep occasionally. We're not the social media police. Occasionally, however, something may occur on a personal page, and that might be brought to the attention of an officer. At that point, if a direct connection can be made, the SCA might then investigate that report, and that has a range of different outcomes that could happen. But on the whole, go ahead, talk about the SCA, share your joy in the hobby, share what's inspiring you. We are really thrilled about that. It's part of what really makes us an amazing community. So please, just simply follow those simple steps. Don't bully, harass, intimidate, abuse, or use hate speech, and you'll be absolutely fine. One of the other questions I had a lot of was that my post has offended somebody and therefore I'm going to be in trouble. Not everything that causes offence is actionable by the SCA. We have an existing set of policies that govern those behaviours. Those are already online and you can find them on sca.org. If your post is reported, the Office of the Seneschal will investigate and there may be action taken, but not everything that causes offence is actionable. People were concerned that the SCA could take away their name and heraldry. No, not at all. If you use your name and SCA name and heraldry, we might use that to establish a connection, just to say, yes, you are representing us. But really, that's only an issue if you are actually displaying those behaviours that we've talked about previously. If you're not, and given that most of you don't, we don't think it's a problem. But please, as we said, don't bully, harass, abuse, or threaten people. People were very concerned that they couldn't criticise the SCA or how the game is played. This is absolutely not the case. You can definitely criticise the SCA. You can share your opinions on how the game is played and how the structures work. You could say, for example, that your social media officer who comes from Australia is definitely venomous. Now, that would be factually incorrect, but it wouldn't be problematic. We do ask you when you criticise the organisation to try and be truthful in general, and that's all we ask. We can't learn and grow as an organisation if we aren't open to hearing what we can improve. So we're very, very happy that you are passionate about our organisation and you want us to be the best place we can be for the future. I am going to take a moment now, though, to talk about some of our social media management principles. One of the pieces of feedback that we've had over the last 12 months is that people aren't really sure about how social media managers make the choices that we make when we're trying to manage our communities. So to deal with this, we're in the process of rolling out some social media management principles for all official channels. What these are is a set of guidelines that tell you basically how we are looking to manage and what are the principles that would actually set people up for success. So I'm just going to run through these now. Now, these were not live at present. Over the next month, they will go live in conjunction with the Kingdom social media officers, and you'll see them start to pop up in the announcements and descriptions of official SCA channels. So these are our principles. Your community safety is paramount. So basically, if you're posting something in our community that makes them unsafe, we're going to act without hesitation to make sure that people are okay. We're going to look to educate first and delete second. Basically, what that means is rather than just have your post disappear, in most cases, we will offer you the opportunity to edit or delete your content personally rather than us needing to take action. And we'll talk to you about why. Social media is not a one-size-fits-all bucket. It's people, which is why we need to apply different types of responses. So one of the principles that we have is proportional response. We are going to apply the appropriate level of response to the perceived scale and frequency of a rule being broken or misunderstood. So not everything gets a big response. You might find that you just simply get a message or a conversation with one of your admins or moderators. We're going to try and be transparent where possible. So where possible, we're going to explain to you why we've taken the actions we have taken on social media. That's partly because as a community, we want to be responsible to you. But we also want you to understand where your responsibilities to your community are. And that helps us all learn and grow. And finally, we're going to make sure that you understand that if you disagree with a particular action taken in managing one of our official channels, what your channels are to actually talk to people. So this is part of an overarching development program that we're going to be rolling out over the next 12 months to support our social media admins, officers, and moderators across the known world. This is a really busy gig. It is a gig in which that you quite often need to be able to respond very, very quickly. And this is something we want to support you in. So we will be looking to build you training and development in the next 12 months. So we're now starting to move into the questions section. First of all, I would like everyone to know, please contact me at socialmedia.sca.org. I'm always available. I'm really happy to speak to your local officers and group and if we can actually arrange a convenient time for us both. As I mentioned, I'm in Australia, so sometimes we may have to juggle our timeframes a little bit. But please also remember the amazing, amazing people who are your Kingdom social media officers. These people work tirelessly for you. And I would just like to take this moment to give the hugest shout out to them and every single social media admin who's been working across the known world. We've had, like everybody else, a pretty huge last 18 months. And that's meant we've learnt a lot as the office, but I think they've also done a simply amazing job. So I'm just going to stop the share at the moment, and I'm going to start and see some of the questions that we've received. I would like to thank everyone again that had taken the time to write to me over the last week. I am through almost everybody. I do have a couple of other people that I still need to respond to, but I will be back. People who care about the SCA take the time to let us know how we can improve it, and this is really valuable. Okay, so first cab off the rank in terms of questions. Does the policy mean we can't talk about things we think can be improved? No, absolutely not. The policy does not mean that. It means that if you're doing it on an official channel, we'd like you to do it in a way that's respectful of the other people on your channel. So talk about the things that matter. Have hard conversations, but have them respectfully and avoid personal attacks where you can. The next question that someone asked me was, can I no longer let people know about particular sources or resources that you find? Yes, please do. Our whole point of being the SEA is that we're educational. Share the information. But if you are an officer, make sure that you are clearly identifying that you're sharing that personally, and particularly in the case of commercial links, etc., you'll need to either have them cleared first, because the SCA does not endorse any particular vendors. All right, question. Can the groups have unofficial social media groups, forums to exchange news, buy, sell items, discuss events, or do all groups have to be official now and only discuss official business? Okay, so let's talk about an official group. An official group is one in which that you're using the group names primarily of the SCA, and that you're doing the sort of business that you might be looking at. So if someone joining the group as a brand new person might think that you're actually an official representation of the SCA, then really that group's behaving like an official forum. If an official if it is not an official forum, then you need to make that really clear. It needs to be labelled, and you need to put it in your description so that people aren't confused. This protects you and it protects the SCA. We want people in our communities to have great conversations, and that's in our official channels. And sometimes those conversations will range, and sometimes those conversations will start one place and end another, because that's how conversations work. That's totally fine. If you're continually taking a conversation off topic, you might find you're having a polite chat with a moderator who sort of says, hey, just keep a bit of an eye on that. If your group is unofficial, then it is your group. It is not the SCA's responsibility, and we cannot support you in managing that. Okay, so one of the questions is about the direct connection to the SCA. This is one of those things that we are trying to provide guidance on, but we can't give you an absolute black and white because things change and evolve. Generally, if someone looking at the page might reasonably look at it and go, okay, yes, I can see there's an active connection to the SCA, and that could be things like your SCA name, use of your SCA heraldry, some people describing themselves as volunteering at, so that those are the kind of things in which that we're actually looking at people's connection to the SCA. This will change at times as technology changes and different information becomes available. So we won't give you an entire yes if you have these 3 things. That's exactly perfect, because we can't answer all the questions at the moment. What we can do is try and be as clear as possible about how we're making the choices that we are. Okay, so what is the reporting chain if someone wishes to challenge a sanction? Okay, so for a start, if there is a sanction issued, it will be issued by the Office of the Seneschal. Please contact them. If it is a local seneschal, you would need to speak to your groups, your kingdom seneschals, and obviously the society seneschal is always there. All right. All right, interesting question. Do I view the role of the social media officer as the person speaking for a group, i.e., PR, or a monitor, i.e., more like the seneschalate? Or is it a combination of the two? I really think it's a combination of the two. When we are speaking out to the SCA, like, on behalf of the SCA, so if we're doing things, take for example, Facebook. If you're working on a Facebook page, that page can pretty much be seen by everyone. And that's how we use it to market and promote the game we love. So in that case, it's far more marketing and promotion. Inside our groups where we're having conversations, it's about community management. It's about making sure that the community has all of the information that it needs to be able to function effectively, and also that they understand what are the preferred behaviours of the community. So it's a combination of both. It's a really great question. Okay. I'm just working my way through your questions. Thank you very much for taking the time to put them in. I really appreciate them. So people have asked about the information about the FAQs, etc. That's there. That's actually up on our website at the moment. And like any document that is on our website, it is an official document of the SCA. We are in the process at the moment, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the session, of putting together a handbook. So the handbook will actually help provide the information about how the office will actually run in terms of its procedures. So the previous policy had those procedures included in them. All Kingdom social media officers are aware that those procedures are still in place, but they will be formalised as part of the handbook. Okay. We've had some questions about if people are experiencing bad behaviour online, and they're not, but they can't, from people that they may know in an SCA context, but their profiles may not actually reflect an SCA directive. First of all, as I said, bullying, harassment, abuse, hate speech, etc., are against the rules of most social media platforms. In those cases, first step, please report them to those platforms. You can make the SCA aware, but we are limited by our rule set, and we will do our best to support you where we can, but we must follow the rules of our game. I would say one of the biggest challenges for any organisation is where people talk about challenges that are existing in the organisation, but they may not necessarily make a report to an officer. So please, if there's something going on, please report to officers. We do respond to every report, so we need you to be actually letting us know if there are things we should be aware of. Question is, does whether or not the discussion happens on the forum where the public can see or cannot see have any impact on critiquing discussion, how critiquing discussions should be handled? No, because our rule set is our rule set and applies right across. So as long as you're being respectful of each other, you can have really robust conversations. But personal attacks, name calling, etc., that's not appropriate in any forum. and therefore you'll find that we react appropriately. Somehow the rumor has started, people will be looking at people's profiles and personal comments, so they need to remove their SEO from nicknames, etc. My SEO nickname's up there on my personal Facebook page. If you're not bullying, harassing, threatening, abusing, or intimidating people, you're fine. Talk about the game, celebrate what we do, celebrate all of the aspects of what we do. That's not an issue at all. If you feel that you prefer not to have those details on your profile, that's your choice. We are not asking you to make any choices about that. Okay, so a follow-up question to that was, for those of us who are officers but whose personal social media does not call out our membership role, do we now need to post some disclaimer on any non-SCA post? No, you don't. It's only purely in cases where you could be mistaken as speaking for the SCA that you need to clearly identify that you are not. So if you're an officer speaking in your context as an officer, you're fine. If you're offering an opinion rather than SCA policy, it's good to identify that. So the question was, if a person is breaking the rules on their personal page and their profile includes a connection to the SCA, is it my job as a social media officer to deal with it if I'm made aware? As a social media officer, your job is to report it to the Seneschal. The Office of the Seneschal does investigations and it deals with our rules. So no, it is not your responsibility to take personal action. Okay, looking at our next lot of questions. Thank you very much. These are coming in thick and fast, which is why you're getting the occasional little delays. So the question is, what are we calling the social media enforcers, and how do we sign up to be social media officers? So enforcement, as I mentioned, is done by the Office of the Seneschal. We are social media managers, so we will manage the policy online. So you have in Facebook generally administrators and moderators in terms of community management. And they're people who basically have some of the technical functions of the group, but they also are able to help ensure that the culture of the group is safe and healthy. And that's really what we call them. So you have social media officers. Quite often you will find in some of our larger groups that they are supported by a team that are basically like deputies, which are their moderators and administrators. All right, next question. So to give people a bit of an idea at the moment, just while I go through the question, it's currently just coming up to 8:30 a.m. on Saturday morning here in Australia, in my particular part of Australia. I'm shortly heading off to an event in my barony, so I'm quite excited. Okay. All right, there's a question about their household groups have pages, some have merchants. How are the uses of merchants or SEA relevant retailers being dealt with in posts? Okay, we don't control household group pages. Those are not unofficial in SEA. We don't control merchants, etc. We do, however, need to make it clear in official groups when something is being sold, and the fact that that is actually not an endorsement of the SEA. You will find generally that the SEA official channels will limit sales posts. There are unofficial groups that are part of our community that actually provide that information. You can talk about those people if you've had a good experience, but you wouldn't necessarily post a direct link to the sales. Okay, how can social media managers create a more positive atmosphere or redirect a social media conversation heading towards non-educational commentary? Some of it's about understanding the culture of your group and knowing you are all the people, it's your kingdoms and your groups. You understand how you all function. Some of it is about just quietly having making a bit of a comment about, hi guys, just a quick reminder, this is an official group, and as part of Kapora, we're all required to be, respectful of each other. People get passionate about things, but also the majority of our people are really, really good people. So we are able to provide those guidance and remind people that basically, if you wouldn't behave like that at an event, don't do it online. Okay, so the question as a bit of a follow-up to that question was, could I give a friendly warning? Absolutely. As an admin or moderator, you could give a friendly warning. But you could pretty much be able to provide it as a bit of guidance going, hi, just being aware, you're starting to come close to maybe not being in the spirit of our policy. Have you thought about addressing it in another way? Sometimes it's as simple as asking people to rephrase things. Okay, is there a line that can be crossed in terms of criticising the SCA that would be require action? This is far more a case for people sort of higher up than us. We'd get some information about it. What we'd just ask you to think about when you criticise the SCA, that you're coming from a place of truth. That's all we're asking for. You can have very strong opinions about the game. It's your game, it's my game. So this allows us to actually be able to look at how we can improve, and we do it in a spirit that helps everyone. Okay, can unofficial groups no longer provide retail recommendations? Unofficial groups are not managed by the SCA. The rules are set by their administrators and owners. So unofficial groups can choose the rules that they wish for themselves. It is official channels of the SCA that must follow our rules. There are a couple of questions in there about whether or not people who display poor behaviour, who may not be displaying an active communication direction to the SCA, is something that the SCA can act on. We are bound by our rule set, and I said this in a similar question earlier. We need to be able to, we as an organisation must behave within the details of our rule set. However, if you become aware of poor behaviour, you should let your seneschal know, or the society seneschal, or our SCA president. We will do what we can within our rules, and that is all any organisation can do. All right, I'm just doing a quick scan of where we're at. You've slowed down on the questions for me. Okay, when a person has something about the SCA in their profile, are they at risk of, if it comments about, sorry, I'm just going back at the moment. Is there guidance specifically being, sorry, I'm reading two questions at once and that's not particularly helpful. Okay, if a person has something about the society in their profile, are they at risk of society sanctions for social media interactions that have nothing to do with the SCA? The SCA is purely going to be looking at if you are bullying, harassing, threatening, intimidating people online. This is just something that you should be keeping in mind. We as SCA members represent the SCA in all of our actions. And this is the person that you see behaving poorly online, even if it's not directly with an SCA member, it could reflect on the SCA. Now, whether or not the SCA will take action is bound by the rule set, and that would be part of an investigation. But basically, so for example, if you're sharing an opinion on politics on your personal page, that's your personal page. You're allowed to do that. We just don't talk about them in the groups, because modern politics and the discussions of modern politics are actually against the terms of our not-for-profit status. If you don't have a local group but you do have an issue, who do you address it to? I would say email me, socialmedia@sca.org, or the Society Seneschal in your first instance, and we'll help where we can. People are asking if they have a question about sales. People can definitely recommend. So, like in terms of, so if someone's posted a question about, oh, I'm looking for this, does anyone have any suggestions? You can definitely post some suggestions below, but it's more the people who are direct selling into our groups. Part of this is about maintaining a really healthy conversation and community. So what happens in a number of online groups is, and part of why we have restrictions on certain topics, is that at times a community can lose its thread and lose its purpose. So this is about making sure that you as members are not continually spammed by sales. It's about making sure that you can still talk about the SCA and all the bits that you love about it, whether or not it's the fighting, it's the art, it's the heraldry, it's all of the amazing things that happen, without constantly having to scroll past multiple spam type comments. Okay, a number of people are concerned about that the policy will be used. For example, if they make comments that they make on their personal page during an argument, they'd be responsible as paid for. As I mentioned earlier, not everything that causes offence is actionable under the terms of the existing SCA policies. The SCA gets a range of reports made to it every year, and we'll only address those that basically breach our rule sets. Okay. Just having a look at the next one. Thank you very much, everyone. These are great questions and they really help everybody to answer. You're starting to slow down now, so I'm just going to take a little bit of a breath and a bit of water. Okay, looking at and I just want to do a big shout out to my streaming team. We are really lucky at the moment. We have people from basically North Shield, West Kingdom, and the Mid Realm all helping at the moment. It's absolutely wonderful. Is there guidance specifically being provided to the Seneschal on how to handle situations of investigation or obvious policy infringement? The Society Seneschal has, there is an investigations guide, but the Society Seneschal is there to support people going for any investigation. My office supports her in providing context relevant for social media. Is there additional language? No, I'm going to swap these two questions. Okay, does having the word SCA in a channel's name make it official? No, but it would be really good if people weren't confused by that. So if you added unofficial to that title, it'd make it even clearer. And is there additional language we should add to group descriptions for unofficial groups? No, you should pretty much just add unofficial to the title and description of your group so that people understand that this is not an official channel of the SCA. For interest groups, we are now actually starting to provide opportunities to those groups who do wish to become official. We now have, for example, the SCA Virtual Classroom is an official society level group on Facebook, as is SCA Iberia. A little bit of a plug for the upcoming Known World Collegia that is coming up in that space. If people run official groups, if people run unofficial interest groups and are interested in becoming an official group, please just reach out to my office, socialmedia@sca.org, and we're here to help. Okay. All right. Next question. Sorry, I'm just reading from my list here as you. A fascinating moment there. Okay. Yep. So making it really clear, just because something has SCA in a channel's name, it does not make it official. However, it would be very, very useful for groups to add unofficial so that people understand. Some groups use known world rather than SCA to make that distinction very clear, but that is up to the administrators of those groups. Official groups, and I suppose even a better way to think about it would actually be that every official group has a disclaimer that actually identifies it as such. So in the section that's normally about or in more information, you will find that this actually identifies it as an official group of the SCA or an official page of the SCA, who runs it and who can you contact. And most of them also says that if you have any issues with it, you can contact that group directly or you can contact my office. People are a little bit interested in what happens next if a report is made about social media, like about action taken on social media. In a lower level sort of type thing, someone could probably just contact their social media officer, and that social media officer could tell them basically why the action was taken. In the case of a formal investigation, the office of the Seneschal has formal procedures, and that includes how people are given the opportunities to respond to those particular situations. Social media, while in some kingdoms is a deputy office to the office of the Seneschal, any matters regarding to investigation or sanction should always be referred to the Kingdom Seneschal. Okay, swapping back into the other chat. I think, like all of us, we're starting to get really good at swapping between multiple screens. And it's always good to find your boss is sitting there in the chat. So I'm just going to do a shout out to Duke John Bearkiller, who, as hard as social media officers are working, sometimes I think Bearkiller and our Society Seneschal Elicit work even harder. So a huge thanks to all of them for all of the work they do. One of the things I would like to say is this doesn't change a lot. This really just gives you an opportunity to understand that when you are representing the SCA on your personal space, don't bully, harass, threaten, intimidate, use hate speech. That's all we're asking. You know, thousands and thousands of us all over the known world are already representing the SCA in amazingly positive ways. And we want you to continue doing that. This simply shows you when you can draw the line about speaking for the organisation and when you might want to have a bit of a breath before you post that comment on Facebook. Okay, so we're coming up to 3/4 of an hour. I've got an hour today before I have to get to opening court. So I will probably, someone sort of said in the YouTube channel that a year of Zoom will get you used to computers. Yes. And I think definitely, like, you know, next time you're at an event as things start to open up across North America and in some of our other kingdoms, etc., more around the known world, if you spot one of your social media officers, give them a smile, maybe say thanks. They are really, they have worked tirelessly this last year as part of your officer corps to make sure that we continue to have our SCA even while the world changed around us. Okay, so there's a question about what should happen when unofficial groups are causing concern but don't breach community standards of a platform. If there is a direct connection to the STA, as in, and that could be a case where it says something like um, STA 13th century beekeeping, there's a really clear link in that point. Report it to your seneschal and allow them to make to investigate and see what action, if any, will be taken. Okay, having a bit of a look now. Right. I'd like to also thank to everyone who responded to us by letting us know exactly which pears in their kingdoms are made of custard, and if not custard, which particular desserts are their particular pears. There was a comment, and we would like to remind everyone that basically peers, like anyone, no one should be attempting to taste peers or anybody without consent. Okay, so our questions are slowing down at the moment. Just having a quick look to see if there's any last final questions. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, I'm actually going to bring the session to a close today. As we said previously, this session will be available on our YouTube channel in the next day or so once it finishes rendering. A copy of the presentation will be loaded to our website. Oh, and a quick note, thank you to everybody who let us know about the formatting error in our original PDF. We have fixed that, and the correct version is now back up on the website. A big shout out to all of our web ministers who support officers in making sure the correct information is out there. So thank you very much for your time. It's been really great to chat to you. A reminder, you can contact me at socialmedia.sca.org, because really, social media, we're here to chat and we're here to help. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.